right. Audio should be live. There we go. Is a good shirt to wear for the stream. What do you think? Yo, get my chat, by the way. Join my chat. Yeah. I don't think you need an invite. No. You could just join my party. All right, hold on, I'm inviting you. You in? All right. Can you guys hear me? Can somebody type in the chat if you can hear me?
I hear you.
Chat keeps dropping out. There we go. All right. Hopefully it stays. I got to get Dave in here.
I'm here.
Dave, say something.
I'm here. I'm here.
I need a different headset. All right. Can you hear me now, man?
Yep.
All right. Here we go. Stream is live. People are live. We got live viewers. We are ready for the Penalty League pre-show and live draft. Let's go ahead and get started. For those of you who are not aware, the Penalty League is our new... Would you please stop fucking with your mic, man? Penalty League is our new league last year. We have increased all the bad things in football, like fumbles or... Chat is not working. Voice not working. Let me see here. Oh, there we go. This should fix it. Is everything good now, boys? Do we sound okay now? Is the chat good to go? There we go. No, you guys do not need a headset. I needed a different headset so that I could hear Dave. Dave, are you good to go? Can you hear me? Dave can't hear me. Technical difficulties. The stream. All right. Then, by the way, Dave, you can talk in your thing. You don't have to keep doing the phone note.
I hear you.
All right. Do you still hear echoes?
No.
We're good to go now.
Oh, never mind. Yes, I do. But you know what? Let's power through it.
Just do you have like YouTube playing on your Xbox or something? Turn it off.
All right.
That's what it is. You have it playing on your Xbox, don't you?
All right, it's gone now.
Did that fix the echo problem?
Yep.
Dave? All right. Yeah, that was your problem. All right, here we go. We're starting with the live stream. First, you have your league champion as well as your league runner-up and regular season champion here talking about the league. There's going to be a few changes this year, so we're going to talk very briefly about this. First, we're going to a 12-team league. We have added Kenny Campbell and the Drucker family to the list here, so we are now at 12 teams. And I want to talk a little bit about this with our fantasy expert, Dave, about what this is going to mean for quarterbacks, folks, because we have 12 teams, 2 quarterbacks, and bye weeks. So what we are going to see here is a lot of scraping the bottom of the barrel for quarterbacks. Now tell us how the league should respond to that, Dave. This is what I want to hear.
Well, one thing you might want to do is try and roster 3 quarterbacks early and avoid having to pick up quarterbacks with limited upside like anyone playing quarterback for Nick's favorite team, the Buccaneers. So I would definitely do that.
Factually correct. Also, as a reminder, you can only hold 3 quarterbacks on your team total. So you cannot hold 4. Do not pick up 2 quarterbacks with the same bye week. Learning from last year, we're going to take a little bit, talk about what we saw last year. We had some quarterbacks who put up 50 bombs. We had some quarterbacks that put up negative 10 bombs. And you'd be surprised how many quarterbacks went negative last year. So quarterbacks can be hit or miss, and we've also devalued them a little bit. They don't get as many points for 400-yard or 300-yard passing games anymore. Additionally, we have added, you get minus 1 point for every 5 incompletions. So know that that devalues quarterback a little bit as well. Kickers, people, you lose like 10 points if your kicker misses an extra point. There were a lot of negative kickers last year. it is okay to intentionally bench your kicker. That is not against the rules in this league. You can bench any player you want as long as you actually set a lineup and benched them and didn't just forget to set your lineup. We've moved to a 6-team playoff since we have 12 teams now, so know that. Trading, we only had like one trade all year, so it was super lame. We want to see more trading this year with 12 teams. Like we said, you're going to be scraping the bottom of the barrel a little bit, and you need to try and trade if you need those positions. Predictions for this year. Well, obviously, I'm going to win it because I dominated last year all the way until the end. So that's all we have. That's all we have for this prediction. We had a lot more time to talk about that, but I'm going to go straight into the draft. Here's the way it's going to work. As you can see on your screens here, we currently have, as soon as I get it up, we have our division and our draft order. I'm going to live draw a name on camera, and then I'm going to enter them into the division sheet and the draft order sheet so you can see. Whenever we pick, the first person we pick will be in the Eastern Division. They will be draft pick number 1. Second person will be in the Western Division. They will be draft pick number 2, and so on until we have gone through the entire league. In between, we're going to talk a little bit about how each team did last year and what to look forward to this year. So we have our expert analysis on fantasy manager talent. That is Dave Weiner, who can analyze all of the owners last year and tell you whether they are worth anything this year. Let's go ahead, and you can all see my beautiful face as we go. All right. As you can see here, we have a bowl. All the names are taped and folded on index cards. So, for the 2017 year, the first draft pick will be, keeping it on camera, Number 1 pick goes to, you can't make this shit up, Faith.
No way. It's not you.
It actually was, but this isn't rigged because I don't want the first pick. First pick is horrible. I don't want it. But since it went to me, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about James Weiner, even though my slide here is wrong. So we're going to go ahead and transition.
I would love to talk about you some.
All right. It says David Weiner, but it is actually James Weiner. Last year, 11-2 record, first place, over 1,900 points, first place. That point total is wrong as well. Now you can see why we had technical difficulties. Let's talk a little bit about James Weiner's team and what we have to look forward to this year. Take it away, Dave.
Well, I think the main thing to remember is that James Weiner had a successful season last year, riding mainly the coattails of players that I drafted in another league. So he couldn't even create his own original team. And then when he got to the finish line and all the cards were on the table, he suffered one of the greatest come-from-behind losses in the history of fantasy football championships.
This is not true.
Where I came back to defeat him due to the fact that all of his players needed to rest because they had already won a league for me the week before. So honestly, I'm not sure if you can recover after a loss like that. Sometimes things like that, they just cripple an organization. They just destroy a franchise. And frankly, I'm worried that that's his fate this season.
I strongly disagree. I would like to point out that last year, even though it's my error and I take responsibility for it, we never intended to have a Week 17. Therefore, the best 3 players on my team, it was, what was it? Antonio Brown, DeMarco Murray, who was the third one? Mark Ingram, I think, were all benched in Week 17 because they were being rested, and therefore I lost that last week. So I put an asterisk by your victory and claim that if it had not been for a Week 17, which was my fault, it would have been a different story. Let's go ahead here, take a look and transition over. Obviously not a whole lot to see here in the Eastern Division. The James Weiner Sex Panthers will be back as the first team, and then Additionally, the first draft pick will also obviously be me, which I don't want. So don't claim that I cheated because I actually don't want it.
Well, that's probably the only chance you're going to have to beat me this year, so you probably did rig it.
No, I really didn't. I don't want that. All right. So, and I just realized I only have 10 spots here, so we're going to edit that in a little bit. Let's transition back over here. And, well, let's go to the camera and we'll draw our second name. All right. Second name, just so everyone knows, is not rigged. All right. I'm not looking. Stays on camera. Will be Kenny Campbell. Kenny Campbell will be the second in the draft. David, I want to hear a little bit about how you feel about Team Campbell this year.
Well, this is interesting because if I'm not mistaken, this may be the highest draft pick Kenny Campbell has ever had in any draft we've ever done. He's usually a second half of the draft type of guy, but he's also been one of the greatest regular season performers we've ever had in any league, but that hasn't been able to translate over to postseason success yet. So maybe now with this new draft spot towards the beginning of the draft, maybe he can change up his mojo a little bit and see if he can actually advance into the playoffs a little bit.
All right. So as we know, we have our scouting report here on Kenny Campbell, new to the league, loyal owner to a fault. This is a guy who likes to draft players and then never give up on them, even when they are no longer doing anything good for his team. Let's talk a little bit how that might affect him this year.
Well, I can actually already guarantee two players that almost definitely will be on any Kenny Campbell team. We refer to them as the Kenny Campbell All-Stars. Player number 1 is Aaron Rodgers, and player number 2 is Jordy Nelson. So I would be willing to bet that you'll see him look to those players early, maybe even too early to a fault. But I definitely think you'll be seeing some tried and true Kenny Campbell All-Stars trotting out there this year.
All right, let's go ahead and keep this moving a little bit. Transitioning back to the cam, we have the bowl, we have the cards. I'm not looking at what we're picking. Third is this one. Trying to keep this on camera here. The third, and going in the Eastern Division, is Nick Drucker. Nick Drucker will be our third in the draft and will be going in the Eastern Division. Analyst, talk to us a little bit about Nick Drucker. We don't have much to go off last year, but we know that he's a 4-time commissioner. So let's go ahead and let's hear what our expert has to say.
Well, Nick Drucker's got a lot of championships under his belt, but I'm going to point out one thing. Nick Drucker has not won a championship after the age of 30. So I'm wondering, a lot of times these days we see athletes playing better and being more successful into their 30s, but I'm wondering if he's the reverse of that and maybe this old age has caught up to him, and now that he's past his 30th, his glory days are behind him, and he's just destined for mediocrity from this point forward.
Ooh, harsh words from our analyst. Definitely one of the older players in the league here. He might be one of those veterans who, has had his glory days and now is kind of riding off into the sunset, carrying it out a little bit too long. Additionally, we do have a complication with the Drucker team here. They do have a new baby, so there's going to be issues of commitment on whether they can spend the necessary time to manage a solid team with a newborn child. So we'll see whether they are able to juggle that. Let's go ahead and move over to our fourth. All right, Bulls here. Can't see it. And the fourth pick goes to Van Lawson. Van Lawson will be the fourth pick for the draft this year. Let's go ahead, take a little bit of how we did last year, talk to our analyst about what we can expect from Van for the upcoming year.
Well, Van Lawson, he's been in some other leagues with us for, a few years now. He he's taken a lot of flack for some of the teams he's constructed in recent years, but he's been a consistent performer. He's made the playoffs every single year. I've been in a league with him, having lost to me in each one of those years. So sorry, Van, but you have made the playoffs at least. So second place is better than no place. Last year's team basically rode on the coattails of, I would say, Jordy Nelson and Kirk Cousins, but he's a Washington Redskins homer. So anytime you're relying on your home team, it's hit or miss. I wonder if, similar to someone else in our league who is obsessed with the Carolina Panthers, will Van be one of those guys who's going to draft too many players from his own team and let that kind of skewer his fantasy prospects?
Well, there's no Panthers really worth owning this year, unfortunately, so that's not going to happen.
You'll find a way. You'll find a way.
However, we want to point out that Van's season last year started off pretty hot. He had a big win in week 5 and a big win in week 1, and then played some easier teams kind of in the middle there. Started off really, really well, and then lost steam completely at the end of the year. Lost some games he shouldn't have lost, almost got bumped out of the playoffs. So we'll see whether he is able to keep the momentum. Let's go ahead and take a look here at where we are for the standings, and it looks so we now have on the Eastern Division 2 powerhouse teams. On the Western Division, one question mark in Kenny Campbell. Well, he'll start good and then have a great regular season and mess it up in the playoffs. And then Van, who also will start good and then lose steam towards the end of the year. So we'll see whether either one of them are able to actually able to come back this year. All right, let's go ahead and pick the next one. For the 5th spot in the draft, we'll go to, get one, there we go. Oh, I already see who this is. David Weiner, 5th position, excellent draft position. Now I may claim that it was rigged. Let's go ahead and talk about the team that none of us want to talk about.
I will tell you one interesting thing that that's going to happen here is that this has turned the East Division. If I'm right, this team. I go into the East Division, right?
Correct.
Well, that division just became a bloodbath. So
yeah.
Enjoy it, West Division. However, I will tell you, coming off of the most dominant season in the history of fantasy football in one league, and then to recover and pull off one of the most amazing comebacks in the history of fantasy football in the other league, there's nothing that can stop me. There's nothing that can stop me from winning this league again. That's really all you need to a regular season floater. I'm not sure what that even means.
Technical difficulties again. Hold on. All right. And I'm back. Sorry. I cut out there for a second while I was listening to Dave rant about himself. Now, there's one thing that we do need to point out about this team. However, when we were trying to find notable wins for David's team, we noticed that he never actually beat a team in the regular season that had a win-loss ratio or win-loss differential of more than 1. All 5 of his losses came from teams that had more than 1, which means that the David Weiner most dominant team in the history of fantasy never actually won a big game during the regular season. He floated through the regular season by beating up on Chantel twice, Schulman twice, a couple other 7-6 and 4-9 teams, and then finally got lucky in the playoffs and was able to actually do something. Let's go ahead
I'll
here.
say there's only one big game last year, and only one person won it.
So this then gives the Eastern Division. Eastern Division's looking pretty strong, actually. We have our number 1 and number 2 from last year already lining up in the same division again. That means we will have 2 Weiner Bowls this year. Looking forward to beating you in both of those again. Let's go ahead and shift over to picking our 6th draft order spot. 6th spot. Here we go. Very jealous of your draft position, by the way. I actually wanted 5. All right. Number 6 goes to Woolworth. No last name. He's like Prince. Just Woolworth.
Fitting.
All right. Let's go ahead, transition over here, and talk a little bit about Team Woolworth's season. Pretty consistent in terms of 9-4 record, second in the league, second in points overall, finished third place after he was knocked out in the first round of the tournament. Really carried by Antonio Brown and Aaron Rodgers here. They made up for a very large portion of his points. So what do we think here about Team Woolworth?
Well, he was definitely strong last year. I mean, he had a pretty solid team, top to bottom. He was an impressive owner. Did some good stuff. I believe made, if I'm not mistaken, made one of very few trades last year. So hopefully willing to make some moves and make some transactions. But right now, honestly, I think he's got a pretty good advantage here. He's dodged the what's stacking up to be a very, very tough Eastern division. So that's definitely working in his favor.
That is very true. He will be moving into the Eastern division. Let me put him in here. All right, and we will switch it over. Take a little look at the divisions again. So now we have on one side Kenny Van and Woolworth, on the other side the Weiner brothers and Nick Drucker. That does balance out the Western a little bit, but I still feel like the Eastern is stronger.
A lot of championships in the Eastern Division.
Yeah, there are a lot of championships in the Eastern Division. We will note one more thing. Team Woolworth incurred an off-season hand injury. Apparently stabbed himself while cooking or something along those lines and had to have major hand repair stitches or something. So we'll see whether the off-season injury really hurts him this year. We always see those players making careless mistakes and hurting themselves. So Team
Seems
Woolworth,
like his coordination's slipping with age too.
It seems like his coordination may be slipping as well. Let's go ahead and draft the 7 spot. This will be going to the Eastern Division. Will be I taped these too good. Dylan Young will be going into.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah. We'll be going
All right.
into the Eastern Division. Dear God. All right. Dylan started with a 7-6 record, carried by Tom Brady. Was one of 2 teams all year that could actually beat the Dax out for Harambe regular season champions during the regular season.
No such thing.
Is that?
Dylan. So Dylan's a very consistent owner. Dylan will make the playoffs. Dylan will finish third. Life will go on.
So true.
Yep. Dylan's a very consistent owner. However, possibly working against Dylan this year is a very stacked division. This is only the second year of this currently, but a lot of us play in another league as well. And if you take the average finish of that other league, the Eastern divisions is pretty high. So this is going to be one heck of a division to make it out of. I think we're going to see some interesting things happen where a lot of these teams actually end up hurting each other record-wise when it comes down to playoff time.
Yeah, there's no doubt this Eastern division is getting a bit stacked here. Now, one thing I would like to point out, Dylan was the victim of a ridiculous schedule last year. He had 4 weeks out of 13 where he actually faced a team with a losing record. And I want to point out the majority of the teams in our league had a losing record. He ended up playing all the 3 or at least 2 of the playoff teams had to play them twice. He had a ridiculous record. So we'll see hopefully if the record I guess it's not going to be any easier in the Eastern Division this year. So sorry, Dylan. That just sucks. Looking at our draft spot, obviously I'm first. We're going to have Kenny, Nick, Van, David, Woolworth, Dylan. Kind of moving into that prime territory. I kind of wanted like the 5 or the 8 or 9 spot if I was drafting. So let's go ahead and start picking some of these next ones. What is this, number 8? Yes, the 8 spot will go to Robin Muse with the 8th spot. Robin Muse. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit about how his season went last year.
Well, he wasn't in my division, so I didn't get a chance to match up against him too much. He was mainly, I think, carried by T.Y. Hilton. He got done in by Russell Wilson, who ended really strong, but for most of the year, if you owned Russell Wilson, it just kind of torpedoed you. He really didn't do much for you, but you drafted him pretty highly. So, maybe he's just got to invest in some more low-risk players towards the top end of the draft and hope that works out a little better for him.
Yeah, and I will also point out that he did have one very big upset against Team Woolworth that gave him a fighting chance at playoffs towards the end of the year, but it ended up not working out for him. So going back to the divisions now, let's get our divisions up here. Looking at
puts
this,
him in the West, right?
Yeah, that puts him in the West Division. West Division is pretty weak. I'm not even gonna lie. West Division's weak.
Oh.
Robin didn't have the best year last year. Kenny is a wild card.
Kenny, this is yours for the taking. It's yours for the taking, Kenny.
I don't know. Woolworth's going to be steep. Van, like I said, he looked like one of the best teams in the league and then barely made playoffs. So we'll see. This is going to be a little bit interesting here. Let's go ahead and pick the next team. We're going for team number 9 in the Eastern Division. Please, dear God, don't give me Stephanie. Oh, baby. Chantel Teed in the Eastern Division. Chantel.
Who?
Chantel.
Who?
Chantel.
Excellent.
Also known as bye week number 2. No, I'm just kidding, Chantel.
No.
We love you. We love you, Chantel. I'm just joking. 0-13 record. 10th in points. So here's my analysis on Chantel. I actually have her as a sleeper. If we were putting odds on this, and each team got odds, I would actually bet Chantel. Now here's why. Because 1, she would get really good odds after last year. But 2, she managed her team fairly well. We were actually very impressed with how she managed. Her problem was a god-awful draft, not her management. She made some horrible picks. Her 2 best players were Cam Newton and Eli Manning. That tells you everything you need to know last year.
Yes,
she also used her...
First thing you want to remember, notice to league. Eli Manning only plays well for me. Don't waste your time drafting him. And don't overdraft Cam Newton. There you go. Those are my free 2 cents.
Yeah, it was like some 4th overall Cam Newton pick was a bit of a dagger for her. Now we're also going to give Chantel a shout out because one of the things that we hate in this league is dead owners. And Chantel was 0-12 going into week 13 and still making ad drops to make her team better so that she wouldn't ruin the balance of the league. And I can't say I would have done the same. If I was 0-12, I would not been making ad drops. So all the respect in the world to Chantel for the ad drops and managing a good team, even though last season was obviously a bit of a struggle for her. Let's go ahead and enter in Chantel into the Eastern Division, as well as the draft order. So now the Eastern Division... probably not quite as bad. It's not like we really drew another huge brutal playoff team or anything like that. So we'll see here now. The divisions balance out at all. All right, 3 left in the bowl. I'm gonna go ahead and go with this one. This is for the 10th overall pick. Eric Schulman, 10th overall pick. Going in the Western Division, Schulman. Let's go ahead and send it over to our analyst here.
Schulman does have a championship to his name. Schulman's the definition of boomer bust.
Really?
He's either he's gonna dominate the league and basically win it start to finish, or he's gonna be right down near or at the bottom of the league. So I guess kind of similar to any person who's a fan of Johnny Manziel. I guess that's what you would come to expect. But I'll call him a sleeper. I'll call him a sleeper because there aren't too many people who have championships, Dylan. But Shulman has one, so we'll give him some respect and we'll give him some sleeper status.
Sleeper status for Team Shulman. I'd like to point out that his 3-10 record and his 1549 points were due in large part to Blake Bortles. That's not a joke. He was the third highest scoring player on his team.
Not ideal.
When you're relying on Blake Bortles, things aren't going well.
Typically, that's the truth.
Let's go ahead and take a look at the divisions real quick as we enter in Shulman. So, Western Division now. Kenny, Van, Woolworth, Robin, and Shulman. Eastern Division, myself, Nick, David, Dylan, and Chantel. Starting to balance out a little bit. I think this is looking like an interesting division breakdown here. Let's go ahead and pick. Well, I mean, this could be the last one anyway.
I know we've got Stephanie, and who's our 12th?
Who hasn't been picked yet? Cam Sharp.
Okay.
So the last one is Cam. Cam Sharp was picked for Eastern Division. Go here. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit about Cameron's team last year. 7-6 record, which gave him 6th, but he was 4th in overall points. Really, his daggers came from losing to you, Dave, in both weeks 4 and 13, which knocked him out of the playoffs.
Got to win the important matchups.
Do we feel like he was snubbed a little bit out of the playoffs?
Well, you could make that argument, or you could just say that, if he wins those matchups to get into the top 4, then he gets right in. So I guess on the one hand, no, he's not snubbed at all. He didn't win the ones that he needed to win, and so he wasn't able to get in because of that. I do always like to see people who are active with their transactions and trades and on the waiver wire, and it looks like he led the league in transactions, so that's good. And if I'm also not mistaken, I believe he was involved in a trade as well, and there were not many of them in this league last year. So we always like to see that as well. With Odell Beckham and Drew Brees, you can understand why, he was kind of in it till the end, but also down the stretch, I think if I remember right, Odell got hurt and Jordan Howard was kind of hit or miss in some weeks. So, I think his record kind of accurately reflects what happened with his team.
All right, and obviously our last one here, we know who it's going to be, Stephanie Brown. Thank God she's not in my division.
I'm ready to talk about this one.
Okay, interesting. Let's go ahead and transition over here.
I have a prediction.
All right.
I have a few predictions, but I'm going to make you wait till the end for my prediction. First of all, she has one of the best team names in the league. I appreciate that. She's got a history of winning big matchups, as you can see on the bottom of your screen. She beat 3 of the 4 playoff teams. It says other than James, but I'm pretty confident she could have taken him down as well.
They can't see that. That's not on their sheets. But so we're gonna have to explain that a little bit. Stephanie's team is kind of I call her the NC State of fantasy football. She will have these huge, massive wins. She beat and stomped actually 3 of the 4 playoff teams and had 5 wins against teams with winning records. So she had some huge wins. The problem was she also lost to teams she really couldn't afford to lose to, which ended up leaving her with the 8-5 record, and she wasn't able to win the point tiebreaker. So, I mean, I think some weeks she scored pretty low. So, props for the big upsets, but I don't know you got to have a little more consistency than that. We'll see whether she's able to bounce that one back.
Well,
now, I want to hear your analysis.
Here's my prediction for Stephanie, and my prediction for Stephanie actually revolves a lot around you, It seems like, you've been able to win a lot of these regular season matchups against Steph, against myself, but you know what happens in the big games? You lose them. Last year you lost them to me, and I have a feeling that this year you might be losing them to her. It makes sense. I'm predicting Stephanie Brown to have a higher finish in league standings than James Weiner.
Wow. Get
Hot
out of here
take.
with that.
Hot take.
Get out of here with that. Well, we all know Stephanie was very excited to beat me last year, and I have basically been hearing about it for the past 11 months, or
As
9
you
months.
should.
So Stephanie's still determined to be the best girl in the league. Now we have Kendra co-managing Nick's team. Chantel is back as well. We'll see if she's able to keep that crown. Now that gives us our full divisions. So Eastern Division, I would say, is stronger. Not by a lot, not by a ton, but considerably stronger. We have myself, Nick, David, Dylan, Chantel, and Cam. Oh, Cam and Chantel in the same division. Ooh, this will be
Yeah, it
interesting.
should be interesting.
I want Chantel to beat him so that you can hear about it for the next 9 months. In the Western Division, Kenny, Van, Woolworth, Robin, Eric, Schulman, and Stephanie. Never actually called him Eric. All right, so
Taking Kenny.
talk a little bit
Taking
about
Kenny in the West.
Really?
Yeah. I think it's wide open. I'm taking Kenny in the West. I think Steph's the playoff team, and then I'm not sure who else is going to make it out of there.
All right.
I'm taking Kenny.
I'm gonna go. I mean, I guess Woolworth is probably the safest pick here. I'm gonna go. Out of the Western Division, I'm gonna pick. My sleeper here to win the Western is gonna be Schulman. Schulman wins the Western Division. I'm going to put Stephanie in playoffs. I'm going to put Woolworth in playoffs. I've got Schulman, Stephanie, and Woolworth making it out of the... Oh, well, I think they're going to make it out of the Western. On the Eastern side, obviously myself, I'm going to go ahead and say that Nick kind of pulls one of those, like, those older players who come back for one more glory year and actually do something. So Nick's going to make playoffs as well. And then I've got Cameron being my sleeper here for the playoffs.
Really?
David Weiner does not make the playoffs out of the Eastern Division.
Putting me and Dylan out, huh?
Exactly.
Right.
Now, it is also important to note here.
See.
Hold on. We need to note how the while we're talking about it, how the playoffs will work here. The team who wins each division automatically goes in as the 1 and 2 seeds, and they get a bye. The next 4 best records make it into the playoffs. They can all be out of the same division. I don't think that's mathematically possible, but it is not 3 and 3. If you are third in your division, you are not guaranteed to be in the playoffs. Even if you're second, you're not technically guaranteed, though I don't know how it would be possible for you to be second in your division and have that bad of a record. So, to be clear, first and second get a bye, and they are the winners of each division. The other 4 come from best records, and tiebreakers are points scored. I believe the second tiebreaker is points against if we get to that, but I will double check it. Any other comments about the divisions and playoffs before we talk about the draft order?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a chance you could see 4 teams from the East, depending on how records break down.
I agree. I don't think it's mathematically possible to get 5 because the other teams would beat each other up too much. All right, let's talk about the draft order here. I hate the first overall pick. I'll say that. I kind of wanted either like 4 or 5, 9, or 12, actually. What were your picks that you were hoping for during this draft?
I actually enjoy being on the ends of drafts because you get to pick exactly who you want. So, either first or in first or second or 11 and 12, I actually enjoy because you don't have to really worry about, well, is that player going to be there? Most times that if you're trying to reach for somebody, they're not going to be there because there's 20 some odd picks between your next one. So I actually like being on the ends, but I won't complain about being right smack in the middle either.
All right. I don't like the ends, but if I was going to be on the end, I wanted number 12. Actually, if you look at kind of players this year, and I know the ESPN rankings don't follow our league very closely, but I was looking at like 10, 11, and 12, and it's pretty solid if you can get 2 out of that range. So that will do it for this year's live draft. We hope that everyone enjoyed it. And again, we'll give you one last look at everything. So we have standings. In case you need to see it, draft order. The last note that I will make is I think I have 4 or 5 people who have paid, or actually 6 or 7 people who have paid at this point. Following the draft, I will lock your teams, and they will not unlock until you are paid in. This means you won't be able to make any ad drops